Well, Chris, hey, thank you so much for coming on, and really excited about this opportunity and for you to get to share your expertise specifically on this topic. We'll get here in a second. But before we get started, could you take a moment and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, your ministry, and where they could go if they want more information?
Sure. My name is Chris Taylor, or Christopher Taylor, and you can go to don'tletthemburn.com. That's the ministry, and we broadcast on our podcast and our YouTube channel, and we're just putting out information to reach the lost regarding all of the issues going on in entertainment.
Yeah. Speaking of entertainment, that's what we're here to discuss. We have just ended the section on super soldiers, leading into the next section on transhumanism, and want to kind of get back into your expertise in that area. Certainly Hollywood is promoting this idea of super soldiers and hybridism and genetic modification and all the latest movies with Captain America, and he starts out scrawny and he gets cramped through this stuff, but hey, wouldn't you want to be that too? Wouldn't you want to be a Captain America or even an X-Men or something, be a mutant, be modified? What I wanted you to share is most people don't realize that this current trend of Hollywood and these superhero movies, they came from somewhere, and they came from the comic books. Mm-hmm. And it's only when you go back into the comic books and look at the exact same characters do you get a more fuller picture mm-hmm. of the characters themselves and what's really driving this movement. Certainly evolution, occultism, I don't think people realize, aliens, which is based on an evolutionary mindset. But share with us a little bit more of your knowledge in the background with the comic books and these characters, so people get an idea that yes, there's a X-Men out there, but that's the tip of the iceberg of the comic book version of what ultimately these entities portray.
Correct. And to understand the comic books, we have to go back to some of the authors from the beginning. People like Jack Kirby, Stan Lee. We have modern day people like Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison, and we can touch on that in a little bit. If we understand the mindset of the creators, then we'll understand where they were trying to take it, whether it's spiritually or in the public conscience and stuff like that. So one of the first superheroes, as you know, not the first, but one of the first major ones is Captain America, Superman. Right. And like you stated, evolution. This is the cornerstone to a lot of sci-fi and comic book lore. You can't have these superheroes progress without evolution. Right. Because like say X-Men, they are a product of this evolutionary thinking. In fact, there's a comic book called Earth X, Universe X, and it's just an X series, okay? Right. And it's like an alternate universe sort of comic book. And in the beginning, you see a robot that is an allegory to a human being. And there's a watcher there, these beings on the moon that are supposedly watching everything going on Earth. Mm-hmm. And it's breaking down the human portion of this robot, because it used to live as a human, and breaking down every ideal about family, God, and everything else. And it says that the watcher is telling him and giving him the historical tale about how these celestial beings came to Earth and seeded what we know now today as humanity. Right. And it gives the historical take about how the gods, the Hercules and all these things came from that, and how the giants, it sounds familiar, right? Yeah. Came from that. And then the gene germinated again later on. And this is where you start to see the mutants, the mutations of humankind, because it's an evolutionary breakthrough, but they're not human. Right. And so now we have these heroes all over the place. And then by the time the end of the comic comes, the seed germinates again, and the whole world is full of these heroes, or everybody's bored now. Right. Wolverine is fat, all this stuff, people are married, but then there's a cosmic threat as usual. Right. And anyway, that's the timeline of this comic book, and it really spells out everything that we're going to talk about tonight. Right. And here it is. we have what's called the apotheosis. Man becoming God, or a machine becoming human and godlike.
Right.
And so we have all of this threading through the evolutionary mindset, and we also have the connection with Aleister Crowley, who was visited by at least two recorded entities, Iowas or Horus, and Aleister Crowley was seeing the dawn of the Superman or the Supermen before he died. Also, when it comes to the idea of man becoming God, we see it all over the comic books through, say, Iron Man. He starts off as a wise, weapons dealer and everything like that. But by the time the 90s and the 2000s come around, now he's full of nanotechnology. And in some states he's an AI. He transferred his consciousness to this AI thing, which leads us into stuff like Ultron, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But then we have the idea of the Ubermensch, which is German for the Superman, and we had a movie come out in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, Man of Steel. Man of Steel was basically this: Krypton is dying, and the scientist, his father, had to basically merge all of the cells of the ancestor worship into his cells. And then he shot him to Earth, which what he was supposed to do is seed with the human woman so that they can create an offspring of supermen. And then those supermen would eventually take over the world. And he's also an allegory of the sun god Horus, and is supposed to be a Davidic Messiah. So he's an antichrist, in other words.
Right.
And so we have that coming, these two trains of thought coming out of the Hollywood movies. And so what's the point? The point is that there's a new age thought, an evolutionary thought that continues to come at us. And one time I pointed out to somebody that, hey, this is going to lead us into the new age, the new era, the evolutionary era. And they didn't believe me, of course. But what have we been seeing? This is becoming super popular, and the new age thought is now into the human population. Our thoughts are now geared towards it, because now kids want to be superheroes. Man wants to escape the curse of Adam. Religious organizations like the Mormons are now into all of this stuff.
Right.
But we would think it was just at a religious level. No, it's entertainment all over us.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Well, and let me interject. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is you think of the timing here. I don't think it's by chance. First you have the introduction of evolution, that there is no God, and over these millions and billions of years, supposedly, that man slowly evolved eventually from apes and before that and what have you, starting from some primordial ooze and whatever. But the process of change of man, they believe evolution happens over a long period of time, slow, gradual process. Well, that obviously is not what the Bible says. We didn't come from the goo to the zoo to me and you, and we didn't come from an ape, we came from Adam. So diametrically opposed right there. But if you're going to get people to fall down the road into certainly the lies about aliens, because the whole premise of aliens is they're extraterrestrials, a higher evolved race from some other part of the universe who's come, and God's not responsible for our existence. We came from the aliens, and that's another comic book thread, and movies as well. You need to have evolution in place. But evolution, Charles Darwin, 1850s, shortly after that, what do you have? You have certainly science fiction beginning to take off. You have radio and movies and industry beginning to take off and all that nature. And then, of course, evolution begins to take the mindset of the world in the educational system. And now that you basically got the world under an evolutionary mindset, to me, that's more the end game, no pun intended with Marvel movies. Right. That's more the end game, is you're setting people up for that last day's deception. You don't need God. In fact, you know what? Let's not wait for mankind to take another million years to take a leap in improvement with evolution, which is a lie, but that's the belief. Let's speed it up. And then how are you going to encourage people to even fall for that, to go to that? and you could use technology to do that. Well, again, it's propaganda. Hollywood, the comic books. But again, I don't think what people realize is the comic books and Hollywood, a lot of people say it's just entertainment.
Right.
No, it's not. It's not only not just an entertainment, it forms and shapes people's patterns of belief. And that they don't realize that what they're being entertained with is a religious mindset twisted with evolution and occultism, very dark stuff when you get behind it. And it actually is shaping the culture for what they want you to fall for, and that is you can be your own superhero. In fact, not just a superhero and you could have these superpowers, and who wouldn't want to have that, right? Everybody today, it's all self-centered, self-enhancement. I want to do this. It's about me, the me generation. And why wouldn't I want to get my body modified if I can become like this? That's great for self. But it's also leading into, in fact, you could just even take the next step. Not just have superhuman power, you could become godlike.
Right.
All that is the common thread with Hollywood and comic books, and people don't realize that it's a preparatory stage. And I would agree with you. I think that most people, if you were to ask investigative questions with teenagers today and even young adults, they take these movies so serious that I remember in the Marvel series and the Avengers, and that scene where all those people are dying and going away, I remember in the theater there were people bawling, crying. I'm going, it's just a movie. But no, it's not for a lot of people. These are their heroes. These are who they want to be. These are people, dare I say, they would be willing to worship somebody like that if they were to appear in real life.
Absolutely. And there's a book out that details all of this. It shows how humanity has this need to worship something.
Right.
And so in the book, it details how these people, cosplayers, they dress up as their heroes. Same thing they used to do in Greece with their gods. And so we're seeing a repeat. But most people won't admit it, that that's what they're doing. They're actually worshiping something that they've seen on the silver screen.
Yeah. Well, in fact, let me give you another example. We brought this out in some of our other studies on world religions, cults, and the occult. And we were able to demonstrate in our study on Buddhism, and of course that led to a lot of the background with Star Wars. And but there are, quote, Jedi churches on the planet today, and this isn't some just joke and they're just doing something to be, have an excuse to dress up like a Jedi. They literally have their own program. They have their own belief system, doctrine, if you will, dogma, code of honor, conduct, and things of that nature, and the temples that they go, and they have their hierarchy and all that stuff. It's legit, and it's all over the world, and it's spreading. So you can't tell me that people are looking at this as just a form of entertainment. It is forming their beliefs and patterns, even from a religious mindset.
Yeah. A good place to point to is like the X-Men. You'll see Professor X do this with his mind control thing, and you'll see kids come out and do the same thing. Yeah. Because they have to copy something because they're looking for an identity. Right. They find their identity in Spider-Man and Superman, and then not everything's bad, but it's not the way you find your identity. You find your identity in Jesus Christ. Right. And when we go into the background of some of these heroes, well, most of them are built in a lab, but we said evolution, so there's a little dichotomy there. Yeah. We have Captain America that was built in a lab. Right. We have Luke Cage, same thing. We also have the Flash, which is a mixture of alchemy and this force, this speed force, where these gods live in, granted him the power to be a speedster. Yeah. And so technically, because it happened in a lab, right? All this chemical fell on him with a flash of lightning, right? And then we have Wolverine, Weapon X, that was made in the lab. Even though he was a mutant before that, they just want to enhance him more. He already had the claws, bone claws, and they put the adamantium metal on him and everything. Then he became, immortal in a sense. Right. He has this ultimate healing power. Even when one comic book, they put him in some sort of vat of, something that could just basically burn all of his skin off, and he still lived. And he healed up. So he's like the immortal, Then we have Deadpool, one of the rated R. Yeah. He's like Wolverine, just a little step up. Same thing, heals and has all sorts of things going on with his superpowers, but he's a mercenary, killer, and somewhat a pedophile. But anyway, it gets deep. And
Yeah.
so these people are born in a lab or have this evolutionary thing going on. And then we get to the hybrids.
Right.
And we think of, when we think of the hybrids, we think of, okay, we have the Genesis 6 and we have the male, mixing with the female, but sometimes they switch it up. Like with Aquaman, it was a female a water spirit that came up from the deep and had, relations with a human, and out comes Aquaman. So he's related to Poseidon and all these mythological creatures, and,
Right.
So that's one. And then we have Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, and his father is Ego, the living planet.
Right.
And this living planet, as strange as it sounds, turned into a human being through, he teleported his spirit into a false, body.
Right.
And came down to Earth and mated with a woman.
Right.
And out comes Star-Lord, which is kidnapped and taken into space to,
Right.
live his life. And then we have Wonder Woman, who is the daughter of Zeus in certain incarnations, not all incarnations.
Right.
And also Wonder Girl. And she is also related to Isis, Ishtar, all these pagan gods, because she wears a symbolism. And she's also Diana, Artemis. It's just they change up names in different cultures.
So now they're even bleeding over, and if you will, they're even, if you will, I would assume, borrowing their ideas from Greek mythology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so another one that most people don't realize is Hellboy, which I don't know why Christians flock to this movie. But
Yeah, thank you.
he is the daughter of Azazel, which is supposed to be like a prince of hell or something like that.
Yeah.
And he came and mated with a human woman, and
Right.
out comes Hellboy.
Well, and stop right there, Chris. I mean, that's what's, I think, mind-blowing. Again, people don't realize that, again, these movies based on these comic books, and the comics books is where you really get the full picture of the background of what's inspiring these movies. And but they don't, even many of the characters, it's not just they're enhanced from an evolutionary mindset, occult, or even technology. They're modified with these super abilities, but they're even mimicking and perverting the Genesis 6 account. Of course, they're taken in a different direction, but they're even borrowing, if you will, from the Genesis account that did talk about that part of the wickedness back in the days of Noah is there was a strange thing going on, and these angels, of course we would look at them as fallen angels or demonic, were actually intermingling with the daughters of men, with ladies, and out came this hybrid that was called a Nephilim. Even the comic books, many of the comic book characters, that's their basis.
Absolutely.
But of course we would say, man, that was horrible. That was part of the reason why God judged the world the first time. The difference today is they're going like, man, I hope that happens to me, or wouldn't that be great? Can you imagine if you got to be like that and have those powers? Right. That's the danger in this.
Yeah, and people are more susceptible to accept that nowadays.
Yeah.
And we can get into that in a minute. There's two more, because we can talk about a slew of hybrids.
Oh yeah.
Doomsday, at least in the Man of Steel, he was mixed with a Kryptonian and the blood of Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Same concept, just a different, a different way to carry out the process. And of course, he's, kind of godlike, but not, and he's just a mad creature, like the next one, the Hulk.
Yeah.
Which the idea from him came from Jekyll and Hyde, and we know Jekyll and Hyde, Hyde was a demon.
Yeah.
And so when the Hulk is hit with the gamma rays, he becomes, well, actually Bruce Banner becomes this raging monster.
Right.
But it's all about the DNA.
Yeah.
And the Hulk that came out of, in the early 2000s, they were mixing frog DNA and all sorts of DNA to make that version of the Hulk.
Right.
So it's there. It's just right now we take it as just fantasy when the world is moving rapidly towards this stuff. And we're not saying that, we're going to see a bunch of Hulks all over the place.
Right.
But humanity is tampering with what God made.
Right.
And he says, don't do that.
Right. And Hollywood comic books are encouraging people to go along with it and celebrate it. And again, like I said, whether the planet's going to be littered with literal Hulks, we are being conditioned to accept hybridization, including humanity, and whether the person gets modified themselves, they're already looking at these entities, potential entities, as worthy of worship, and certainly following them. I mean, who wouldn't want to have the back of Iron Man? I mean, you would. I mean, so I think that's a concern. Just real quick, this popped through my head. See if you agree. That last Avengers movie, I think one thing that was very interesting, I thought that was an interesting angle for them to portray. You mentioned Hulk, and in that last movie they had, Hulk was out the whole time.
Right.
And it was like he made peace with basically this other half.
Yeah.
And the other half basically was the one who's now in control.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, you go back and you do the homework, and according to the other half, the Jekyll and Hyde, and the bad part was a demonic, so now he's like full-blown demon guy, and it's okay that he's out full-blown.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that was by chance.
Yeah. And in the 90s, that's when they started splitting the Hulk personality. They even split him into the Gray Hulk and the Green Hulk and all this stuff, and you know, it went all over the place. There's even a comic where the Hulk had babies, and they were kind of like these rednecks in the desert, and they would cannibalize people. So they take it everywhere that you could think. You know, as far as spreading the seed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as we mentioned, the gods, who are directly related to the gods of old, so-called.
Yeah.
We have, again, Wonder Woman, and her counterpart in the Marvel universe is Captain Marvel.
Right.
And again, they're related to Isis, Ishtar, Inanna, Artemis, and go on and on and on from different cultures.
Right.
They wear the star, they wear the emblem, that's who they are. And it's not something that's hidden either, you know? Then you have Thor. This is a big one because most people don't realize the sun god and the moon god were worshipped in different culture, and the moon god was, one of the upper echelon of the pantheon. That brings us to Baal. And Baal is the prince of the power of the air, the lord of the flies, and all these things, king of abortion. That's Thor.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the storm god.
Yeah.
And because, we got a handsome actor playing Baal or Thor, and it's put into a very entertaining way, we give it a pass.
Right.
But it's kind of serious because many people really like this character.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, they get mad when he's not in the movie.
Yeah.
So that's another one. And then we have Shazam, which is the counterpart to the female Captain Marvel in Marvel, right? Because his name was originally Captain Marvel. He's given the power of 5 gods and 1 human. The 1 human is Solomon. He gets the wisdom of Solomon. But he's initiated into this thing by a wizard who brings him into a throne room and endows him with the power of Shazam.
Right.
And that movie, did well when it came out. But again, it's calling on the power of the gods.
Right.
Zeus is lightning and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Again, the Flash. He is Mercury. He is the messenger of the gods. He is literally that embodiment.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We already said Aquaman. He's related to the Poseidon and stuff like that. And then here comes the big ones. In these comic book movies, they're always facing some sort of cosmic threat that's about to obliterate the planet. Well, it's been spoken on camera that, let's say, Apocalypse from X-Men Apocalypse, he is Jehovah and other names.
Yeah.
They say it.
Yeah.
The director said it, right? So we have, his name is Apocalypse, with Apocalypse, the revelation of Jesus Christ.
Right.
So they put this cosmic force to come down and wreak havoc on the world. It's basically like the book of Revelation was happening in front of your face. So he's an allegory to Yahweh.
Well, which again, you think about that, and we brought this out in the documentary, could it be? And of course, the example I used was the Avengers, and they're taking on this alien thing that comes from another dimensions, and we all need to rise together with all of our superhero powers and technology and whatever we got to do, and we got to all bond together as humanity in one last final triumph to defeat this alien from the sky. And that's another example, once again, Hollywood, the exact same premise, that you even utilize, Yahweh, the biblical for God, and what is everybody trying to do? They're trying to all band together with their technology and their superhero powers and occult powers, and you're going to, what? Defeat God. And again, that's exactly, and I'm not going to say thus saith the Lord, but it's that kind of stuff that makes me wonder, are you preparing people who will be in the 7-year tribulation to fall for the battle of Armageddon, where Jesus Christ is going to come back to the planet. He is God, and he is going to war with the planet. He's not going to lose. It's going to be a bloodbath. Read, Revelation 19. And but yet, it says there that Satan, the false prophet and the Antichrist, goes out to the whole world and dupes them to actually try to take on God.
Yeah.
And you're like, who in their right mind would ever take on God? And the Bible says that when Jesus comes back at his second coming, which is the end of the 7-year tribulation, there's not going to be it's mysterious, as the lightning is from the east to west. It's going to be a global event. So you're going to see him coming, parting the sky. And so how is Satan going to dupe people to try to take on God? And I really think that Hollywood's preparing with this technology. I mean, didn't you see the Avengers? I mean, didn't you see the X-Men taking on the apocalypse? I mean, we've got to band together one last time. And of course, they're not going to say that's Jesus Christ coming back at his second coming. Satan's a liar. He's a deceiver. It's an alien entity. We need to band together. And again, maybe it's a stretch. I'm not going to say thus saith the Lord, but I don't think any of this is by chance.
No, I agree. And, let's talk about another one. Thanos. Thanos, in biblical studies, we see Thanatos, study of death, right? And that's his name in basically the angel of death. And in the comic books, he's actually in love with a manifestation of death that's a woman, right? And they changed it up for the movie. But it's another allegory of this godlike being that's raining down his wrath on humanity.
Yeah.
And all of these heroes, so-called, that are using occult powers, most of them, are fighting this cosmic godlike being.
Right.
And, here's another one that people might not realize what's going on here. Silver Surfer. He's supposed to be a Christ-like being. However, the creator admits that he's Lucifer. Galactus has enslaved him. So here we have an allegory of God, a bad God. He's going to enslave this guy from this other planet and take him as, his angel or whatever. And he's going to endue him with power, great power, and then he's going to come to Earth and release himself from the grip of Galactus.
Right.
It's admitted in the comic books.
Right.
That's what Silver Surfer is Lucifer.
Yeah.
Galactus is supposedly.
Well, and that's the New Age lie. And I remember obviously being saved from New Age and the lie of New Age. But I remember even back in those days that the New Age clearly portrays Satan as a good guy. Lucifer, the light-bearing one, they say he was a great guy and he's just gotten a bad rap all these years. I mean, he's really here to free us and to save us and help us. And it's just that Christian version God thing that it's really just twisted. He's really here, and we need to do what he says. And that's the New Age line.
Right.
And then there is going to be a false Christ, Antichrist in the 7-year tribulation, of course. And unfortunately, people are being again propagandized to think that following these kind of entities, that they're really good guys. And don't listen to the Christian version at all.
Right.
And we've got it right. And when you do the investigation, you realize that once again, the enemy's doing what he does so well. He twists, he contorts, he perverts the actual truth. It's all meant to deceive. And the scripture's clear, John chapter 8, the Bible says that Satan is not only a liar and the father of all lies, but he's a murderer, and he's been one from the beginning. He hates humanity, and he'll come up with any whacked out lie he can just to dupe people long enough from receiving Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior, and to ultimately end up in hell.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's unfortunate. And again, what we're trying to bring out here is this whole idea of super soldiers. There's so much more. All that we're even just scraping the surface right now could be a documentary in itself.
Yeah.
And but just want to give people the idea that you're not going to get the full picture of the superhero movies until you go back to the comic books. And when you see the comic books, it's the age-old lie from Satan that you can become God, Genesis chapter 3. You don't need the biblical God. Listen to Satan. He's got it right. And it's a mixture of evolution, the occult, and things of that nature. And again, that it's leading somewhere. It's not just entertainment. And it's very deceptive, right? Because if you ask a person, well, you know, sounds to me like you're just you must have a PhD in Greek mythology. What are you crazy? I don't care about any of that stuff. Well, everything that you think is great in these movies and you even want to worship, right? That's old-fashioned Greek mythology. It's just put to Hollywood, 3D and special effects. These characters in the comic books, and I think that's part of the deception.
Yeah.
And again, it's a perversion of the biblical account.
Yeah. And to ground it a little bit, the comic book artist Grant Morrison, he said he took a little bit of hash, went into the woods or peyote or whatever he smoked, and he was visited by some entities because that's what he was looking for. And he claims that they took him up to Alpha Centauri. I don't believe that's what happened, but that's what he claims.
Right.
And he said he saw the 3 suns and all this stuff, right? Here's the kicker. The entities gave him what we would call hidden knowledge. So they're leading him. They said, take what we are giving you and put it in the comic books.
Right.
And his comic books do gangbusters, okay? He's one of the most famous comic book artists out there. In fact, he rebooted Wonder Woman and, you know, he sold a lot. But here it is. He's being led to lead us.
Yeah.
The young readers, most of them are young readers, and the same thing with Alan Moore. This is the guy that says that the grimoire or the book of spells literally means to spell. So he wrote V for Vendetta, the Watchmen, that famous comic book, and a bunch of other ones. And what he has in there is tributes to Aleister Crowley and other, people. But the point is, they're being led by spirits to lead us. And that takes us into the area of transhumanism.
Well, exactly. Boy, it's almost like you're reading my mind, Chris. You got superhuman powers, but no, that's the lead. And again, I would encourage people that there's so much more going on than meets the eye on the superhero soldiers, and you better be careful because again, and this has been a common thread through the documentary. I didn't plan on it; it's just the way it came out. That Hollywood is a giant propaganda machine that is being used to get people to accept that title. Hybrids, super soldiers, and it's going to lead to a genetic apocalypse. And I don't think that's over glamorizing. I don't think it's hyperbole. And but they don't realize that you're not going to get the full picture of this movement. It's beyond the movies. You got to go back to the comic books. The comic books really tell you where the roots of even that's coming from. And it's old-fashioned Greek mythology. It's a twisting and perversion of the biblical account, and it's deceiving people in the last days to not just, yes, don't you want to be a superhero, and maybe even take on God, right? Yeah. And that ultimate unfortunate deception, but also just to be enhanced and to be modified, and don't wait for evolution anymore. You can use technology and become superhuman, super intelligent, all that stuff. But it's leading to people to either worship these entities as a God or the lie from Genesis chapter 3 that you can become a God.
Yeah.
And again, that's what Hollywood, the comic books are really, it's a spiritual thing. It's not just entertainment. It's a spiritual deception preparing this. But what I would say is that's just that aspect. There's another group on the planet who would maybe, they've never opened up a comic book, I don't know, and they could maybe care less about being a super soldier or promoting that or Hollywood, and they don't even know who Captain America is.
Yeah.
But they too are also encouraging people to go down this route, and that of course is the transhumanist movement. Yeah. A group of people, a whole different echelon, who are into the scientific community, who are into politics, who are the moguls with the billions of dollars around the planet. They too are pushing that agenda, and that's what we're going to get to next. So, but thank you for sharing and opening up that giant can of worms. And Chris, I know there's so much more. So once again, if people want to get more about your knowledge and your ministry, which by the way, I got to give you the shameful, wonderful plug, is for those of you wondering, Chris is also the artist for our ministry as well. He's a fantastic graphic artist. He's the one responsible for this backdrop and a lot of our artwork in the ministry. And so including not only a knowledge base on this and his ministry, if you have any art needs, what have you, Chris is the man. But Chris, one more time, if you can tell people where to go if they want to get a hold of you and more information.
You can find us on don'tletthemburn.com and a bunch of other social media platforms, many video sites. We're all over the place. So, hey, check us out and continue to reach the lost.
Amen. That's what it's all about. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You bet. All right. Awesome.